Okay, welcome to this quick scene, kind of Halloween-ish, using the foundation of Seaside Cove. All right, the Seaside Cove stamp is a really large stamp, and it was conceived to be used not necessarily in its entirety, but more in portions, and I made it in one stamp just so I didn't have to have 4 different stamps to make it, so... you can use it for center, left, right, or this bottom part. And that's mostly how people have used it through the years. You can use it in its entirety if you're doing a really quite large scene, but that would be a pretty big one. Okay, now I have this on a wood mount right here. So if you're doing it on a wood mount, what you want to do is I have a complete magazine underneath here for a little bit of extra cushion, or a lot of extra cushion, I guess you can say. But if you ever get this and you have a hard time getting an impression out of it, going stamp to paper, I've shown how you can take paper to stamp. So you lay this upside down, you ink it up, and then you just lay your paper down on it and just take a brayer and go across it like that, okay? And that gets you a really good impression as well. The paper that I'm using right here is really, really thin, so it's a little bit easier to take paper to stamp if you're using like a thicker cardstock, you know, something with a little bit more stability to it. But this is like a thin copy paper. Stamping on the vintage paper right here to make things go extra fast. I'm stamping a little bit of extra time right here to allow that Brilliance water-based pigment ink to transfer and to set up and to adhere to this paper, okay? All right, so we have that down like that, and you get your Seaside Cove in there, okay? All right, so like I said, you have to kind of let that ink transfer like that. It takes a little bit longer, and it doesn't, you know, like black ink doesn't like transfer completely on this paper. You know, because this paper is a little bit sealed off. Okay, so that being said, but that's going to work in our to our benefit right here. All right, so I have some stamps out of my private collection. I have this little dancing skeleton right here and this one right here. To have a little bit of fun with kind of a Halloween theme. Let's get those stamped out. So this Seaside Cove stamping out a little bit lighter kind of helps me in that it's not so dark that if I stamp this across that impression, it's going to obscure my skeleton too much, at least, okay? But I think I've stamped it up high enough where I don't have to worry about that. By the way, this is 5 by 7 inches, so going with a fairly large scene here. Not quite half page, but, you know, almost. Okay, this is a little spindly little skeletal linear type of stamp, so I'm holding that down a little bit longer like that. And we'll go with a little, whatever, dancing partner here for this skeleton. I see these skeletons as like having, I don't know, like a good time here, like partying in the moonlight, which I'll add here in a bit. All right, going off the page slightly, but that's all right. And let's add in a little bit of extra little textural types of elements around in here. This is the Tiny Rock Small stamp, one of my most used stamps these days. And see, I'm just trying not to stamp over my figures. If I do it, it's going with a really light impression with this. After you ink it up, I stamp it a few times, maybe I'll put a lighter impression, like right in there, and it looks like it's behind them because it's stamping out in such a light, you know, gray or something like that. All right. We have that. Now, I have this galleon ship like this, okay? I saw it as like the, you know, whatever, like the Black Pearl or something like that moving in. But before we stamp it out, let's see, let me get this positioned. Let's go from like something like this right over here. And I'm going to put some moonlight, or a full moon in there. Going with the Brilliance White Pigment ink. Now, the darker area you put this moon in on paper like this, the more it's going to stand out by contrast. So keep that in mind. You can make it look a little bit duller if you want to. Let's take a look at that. I think that's about right. See, if I put it over here in this darker area, there would be more contrast. So, you know, you can adjust accordingly. Okay, so there is that. Now, let's go for the ship. I think that I'm going to have that ship partially, if this is registered well, in that moonlight. The ship is from a company that's no longer around called Fistful of Stamps. Kind of like the Fistful of Dollars Clint Eastwood movie. I remember I showed up at one convention. I thought I saw that company. I hadn't heard of them before. And I thought, that's pretty cool. And they were around just, I don't know, not too many years. But some really cool, kind of funky imagery that I really liked. All right, coming in. Now, sometimes I was thinking about doing this where it looks like it's submerged a little bit. So I'll stamp it at an angle and I'll mask off some of it. It looks like it's a, you know, like a, not a sunken galleon, but, you know, partially sunken. Or sinking, I guess it could be too. But I thought, let's do this and make it look like, see if we can make it look like a kind of a ghost ship coming out of the, you know, distance. All right, okay, we can get pretty solid like that. I guess there's a lot more solids in it than the Seaside Cove. And then I am wondering if I can get a light impression of my word stamp here, or should I go with the black impression? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was dark enough up there where this will stand out if I stamp it in white ink against the background. It might have to be in black. Let's just go with the black. Kind of a reverse text would be kind of cool right in here. But I'm not, the Brilliance ink, I mean, it's pretty light, but it's not opaque, you know. You get that color of the background showing through those types of things. I think the whitest you can get is if you do maybe some, like white embossing or something like that, but I don't want to go with white embossing on this. Okay. Okay, so now we're almost done here. Really quick card. Let's add a little bit of shore grass or something like that. Go for a little bit more foreground here. That, and let's start defining some more of the values in this piece. We have that moon coming in the background like that. It could be casting some different light in here. But what I'm going to do, on the stamp, there are darker areas underneath my waves, okay? And I'm going to look for that down here. You can see those darker areas in there, okay? So what you do is you just take, in this case, the easiest thing is just to take a black colored pencil, and then you start adding in some of these grayscale tones in here. Remember, in stamping, you can stamp out grayscale, but that's if you use like a lighter, you know, drier version of ink, or you can stamp it in gray, certainly, but black is a good way to go. And then just to use your colored pencils to add in some finer details on the papers that will allow it. Something like a, glossy cardstock doesn't take colored pencils very well, but on papers with a little bit of tooth to it, colored pencils work great. I didn't always use colored pencils, for years I didn't really do that because I was always going for like super, super bright, saturated tones, which I love still. But I've been playing around with the colored pencils lately, and the colored pencils really give me the opportunity for a lot of detail, which I also love, which is not something that you can kind of create very easily with dye-based ink applications, okay? Because you're usually sponging those colors on or something like that, where this is more of an exact type of, application in a, very specific area. Yeah, just because the paper tip is, much smaller. Need some, if you have like a buried treasure or something like that, it'd be cool down here. All right, let's put a little bit of shadow being cast by this, what do you call it, a galleon or something like that? Okay, see that shadow being cast by that? You have this moonlight, it's creating some backlighting here. And I think I'm going to go for a little bit of a horizon differentiation here. Let's go like this right here so you can see a little bit of a change from, whatever, surface to sky. This is also a great place so you put some palm trees or something like this, a little bit of an island like that coming up from there. And that kind of creates a little bit of a stronger horizon. Maybe I'll still do that, I'm not sure. Okay, so we have that right now. Now, if you want to, one of the things that's really fun is if you take a white pencil of some sort, it could be a white colored pencil or something like that, but you see all these wave areas like this are light. Now, here's the thing. Here's what you're going to do on this one. You're not just going to see this whole area as a place to color in white uniformly, okay? You see where it's darker underneath the wave, and then it gets lighter like that, okay? So I didn't just fill in this whole area. It transitions a little bit darker to a little bit lighter. That's what you're going to do with white here. So you go on the top of the wave like this, okay? Like that. And then you can kind of transition a little bit. I mean, in some areas you can, fill in that whole area, but I would kind of do a little bit, of a lighter area. In other words, more white. Like that. See how that kind of makes those waves stand out a little bit more? Look at this front wave right here. Okay. So let's add this around kind of that top area of the wave. And then transition it a little bit down like this. Like I said, it doesn't have to be completely uniform. You can make it a little bit, that white a little bit thicker in some areas if you want to. There's a little bit of white there on the horizon, where it's closer to that moon, like that. Yeah, and then I'm going in here, I'm making some of these areas a little bit lighter, to just make it pop out a little bit more. So it's just not, super even. See, it's like a little bit whiter there, a little bit less. So you go in there, you just kind of lay down a little bit, and then you just go in here and tweak it a little bit. About like so. Make some areas really light, like it's that moonlight really coming off the, or reflecting off certain areas. Okay, I'll put a little bit of lighting down here in the sand. Assessing here. Oh, so we have these sails up here. I want the sails to look kind of ominous, so I won't put too much of this on there, but I put a little bit of lighting on some of these sails. Like that. I don't know, it's not too much, but it's like the, you know, the light is showing through these, you know, the fabric, I guess, like that. Okay, now for nice little bright highlights in here, what I'm gonna do is I'll go and in this lightest of areas, I'll add a little bit of this splashing kind of specular light coming off of the waves. We'll see if you can see it here on the camera or on your screen here. But this adds a really great textural difference to you know, the colored pencil and impressions on here. You can put a little up on the horizon like that. I'd make it a little bit more sparkly, but this one's supposed to be kind of more ominous looking, so I'm going to keep it not so sparkly and rich, okay? But you see some of those little highlights coming off that here. Let me show you. You know, I'll put some of this in this darker area just so you can see it a little bit more. If you add in some of that white like that and say, oh, you know, and I think I should have added a little bit more black, you know, at no point in time, you know, is it too late to add a little bit more here? I'm creating a little bit more contrast underneath a couple of these waves like this. Just going like another, I don't know, whatever, 5–10% darker makes the area around it, or the lighter areas around it, I should say specifically, it makes those areas seem 5–10% lighter like that. Okay, see that little darker area underneath that wave? All right, so we have that going on like that. I think that looks about right. Here, I'm going to put a little bit of highlights on it, a little bit of the skeleton right here. Have those guys stand out just a touch more. I'm not doing everything. I'm just putting like a couple little, like there's this bone, his femur there, or something like that, hip bone. I'm just putting a little bit of highlighting on, you know, parts of them. Here's a little light area of the skull right here, looking up in the chin. So I'm looking for the lighter areas on the designs. And that's what I would kind of illuminate a little bit more. So it just makes, I don't know, makes for a kind of a funky, I don't know, Halloween type of card. You know, just the very nature of stamping out some, you know, skeletons on there, you know, make it more of a Halloween type of ish scenario here. If you take these skeletons right here, you know, it has a little bit of an ominous tone to it with the that ship, but otherwise, you know, more, I don't know, whatever traditional looking. Okay, I'm gonna do these little types of little things like this to make it look like these sails are a little bit more ratty looking. Okay, like it's tattered. I'll put a hole in, you know, some of these sails too. All right, so see that right there? A little bit more ghostly, I guess. Ominous. But there you have it there. mat this and, you know, put it on a nice firm piece of cardstock. It'd be cool with a black, you know, border around there, something like that. I think that would be a great way to finish this off. I don't know, I've been using a lot of gold matting around this type of paper just to bring a little bit more excitement into it, but I don't know, you can try some different color schemes around something like this. You know, maybe that purple and black or something like that, you know, Halloween-ish. Violet might go well with this kind of warm tone antique paper or something of that sort. But I don't know, play around with some different things and see what you think. Or if there's any kind of like a paper that looks like it's like burnt or something like that. Or you can even do like, you know, do those all burnt edges on this. I think people actually used to do that. They little burn their edges or something like that, and then mount that on another piece so it looked like, you know, something really aged or something like that, and it would kind of go along the lines with that tattered background. If I was to burn something, I'd probably do it before stamping on it, but I don't know, you can play around with it and you know, go along with the theme of aged and kind of you know, falling apart Halloween. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks so much for tuning into the Stampscapes channel.